Welcome to King Lizard's Game Lounge and Forza Motorsport 7 Rivals. This is the December competitive driver training event that I tackled way back in December in a variety of different A700 class vehicles across different divisions. So first off, I tackled this track in the 2016 Subaru WRX STI Fast and Furious Edition. Now, obviously you need the Fast and Furious Edition DLC to try this car. Now, this car across the specs is, it's a reasonably fast car. It doesn't have a fantastic amount of steering. It seems very tight on the steering, which is quite weird for Subaru because generally they're very kind of versatile through corners. This vehicle, I found that some of the really tight corners I had to drop it down to second gear, like this corner here, in order to get round. If I stayed in third, I landed up drifting wide and going off track and obviously getting a dirty time. All of the times that I do in this video are clean, and also all of the cars I'm driving are no assist and manual. The only thing I'm not doing here is using the clutch, and that I think is hurting some of my times. In the distant future, maybe I'll be able to pin down clutching and be able to introduce that into my driving style. I do have a steering wheel setup, which I've got some videos that I'm going to put together and put on the channel just so you can see the steering wheel setup I've got, what it involves setting it up and the costs and stuff. But I'm finding it really difficult to use that steering wheel setup, especially for rivals. I tried it initially doing some of these runs in some of the vehicles, and my times were horrendous compared to the times I could get on the controller. I mean, I'm talking 5 and 6 seconds at a time lost by using the steering wheel setup. I found that sometimes the steering wheel setup just goes crazy for no apparent reason. Don't ask me why. I don't know if I've got a faulty steering wheel or it's just how they are. So after my first run, I managed to pull in a 2-minute 12.969, putting me 1,307th out of 2,680 drivers at the time. For run 2, I jumped into the 2005 TVR Sagaris. This is a car that's been with Forza Motorsport since Forza Motorsport 2, and it's a vehicle that was first designed in 2003, went to a few motor shows, and then eventually in 2005 they had a production model which they then released. This car was designed for pure endurance racing, hence all these vents and stuff on the front of the car. They were there because of cooling reasons, in order to keep the car cool over long distances. Really nice looking car this. I love the design of the Sagaris. It's quite unique in the way that it looks, and you can tell instantly that it's a TVR based on its its body style. But it's a very light handling vehicle this, and very easy to go into an oversteer and cause an unintentional drift. So if you take a corner very tight and just try and push the accelerator a little bit too much, as I'm doing here, you'll see the back end starts to slide out and you go into a drift. But it's a controllable one, and that's what I like about this car. It's quite easy to snap it back in and regain control, but it was able to get much tighter corners. This one I nearly lost it. You see me kind of snap the steering back in there and just regain control at the last minute. But I'm absolutely pushing this thing to the max to try and get the most out of it on this lap. Now, this was one of a few laps I did with this car, and it's just a very, very responsive car and a very, very fun car to drive. If you don't have one of these in your garage in Forza Motorsport 7 or any Forza Motorsport game you own, I definitely suggest you get one. They are fantastic. Engine sound on this, really high pitch kind of engine sound, and obviously it's extremely noisy because there's no noise protection in this. It's designed for pure endurance racing, hence all the noise, and hence why it probably feels so much faster than that Subaru that I just drove. So I knocked 3 seconds off with a 209.324, and I came in 1,147th, putting me in the top 43%, so some improvements there. Next up, I jump into my favourite car. I love this car a bit, the 1965 Shelby Cobra 427C. Really fantastic looking dashboard, this car, but also just a great design and pure engine, pure guts, real powerhouse of a car this. And it's something that I figured I'd definitely be able to beat the last time on that Sagaris. The only problem with this car is kind of reining it in and getting some really good control. It's very light steering, this vehicle, and because there's so much power there with no assist, it's very difficult to keep this thing under control in and out of corners. Definitely not a car for a novice, but that said, this car drives a lot better in Forza Motorsport 7, or a lot easier than it has in any other previous Forza Motorsport. Controlling this car without assist in Forza Motorsport 2, 3 or 4 was a nightmare. It was a little bit easier in Forza Motorsport 5 and 6. So in Forza Motorsport 7, if you've not driven one of these before, definitely check it out. It's a fantastic car to drive. Look at that dashboard, it looks absolutely amazing. Now, I've actually got a rival here who's driving the NSX Honda, and this guy's giving me a real run for my money in this Cobra, which is, you know, as I said, an extremely fast vehicle. This, the real issue with this car, as I was saying a few moments ago, is just keeping it under control and not doing too much sliding. That said, that, you know, the tune that I put together for this definitely made some improvements to the way the vehicle handled, and I increased its acceleration in and out of corners. So just coming up to the last couple of corners here, I just managed to get the grunt into this last corner and take my rival. So I came in at 2 minutes and 8 seconds there, so a second improvement, and then that took me up to 1090th in the world and the top 40%. So again, some minor improvements, but I'm getting there. Next up, I jumped into some muscle, so GT Sport Icons division. This is a 1995 Chevrolet Zev R1. This car has some real power, 8.6 acceleration, 7.2 on the speed ratio. Very difficult car to handle though. It's extremely heavy, but at the same time it's got good power to weight ratio. So it's, you know, it's very, very fast, but at the same time, obviously getting this much weight around the corners is quite difficult to do that cleanly and keep the car in control. It is actually quite easy to lose this car, and I nearly did it there, as you can see. But you'll see, you know, as kind of the car revolves and you see around the bodywork, you'll see I've already done some damage to this car where I span it out a couple of times. But, you know, really typical 90 style dash there into this corner. I had to drop her down into second like that Subaru. I just had to drop down really low gear ratios for tight corners. This thing just wasn't going around the corner in third gear on a number of occasions. This corner typically is a second gear corner for most cars anyway, but real good power to get me up and over the hill there, and, you know, reasonably quite a good controllable car. Again, in previous Forzas, especially the early Forzas, this was a very difficult car to drive, but in Forza Motorsport 7 it's a hell of a lot easier than it ever has been. I really feel, I mean, I think it's a good mix of, you know, driving and racing fun, you know, the handling in Forza Motorsport 7, but it's definitely easier than it used to be, even with this new friction control that they've put into the game. So I'm coming into the final two corners here, absolutely maxing this thing out, and I managed to get a 2 minutes 5 seconds .463, so I knocked 3 more seconds off, and that brought me in the top 1,836th in the world, and a worldwide placing of 30%, so 10% increase. Next up, I jump into the Ferrari 2003 360 Challenge Stradale, another GT Sports icon, which is powered by a V8 engine delivering 420 horsepower. The tune that I set up and that I'm driving here does 422 horsepower, but this vehicle is capable of speeds up to 190 miles an hour, and it'll do 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, so quite an impressive little beast. Handling wise, this was by far, as the stats suggest, the best vehicle for handling that I drove during the course of this Rivals event. It was pretty much a very good all-rounder, this vehicle. It had really good top speed, very good acceleration, although it wasn't the best in terms of acceleration, probably the 4th in terms of tearing out of the cars that I used. But I was able to get around most of the corners without too much misbehaviour from this vehicle, and no surprises, so quite a pleasure to drive this. At this point it became apparent to me that my time was extremely close to the previous time. And obviously the only way I was going to get a better time out of this 360 Challenge Stradale was if the handling benefits of this vehicle, you know, just gave me that second or two that I needed to improve on my time. Top speed wise and acceleration wise, it was actually lacking versus that 1995 Chevrolet Zev R1, so it was only really the handling that was going to be able to pull me through and get a better time on this circuit. I was actually curious about the cost of one of these brand new, but I couldn't find that. What I did find was that you could buy one of these second hand for around about $160,000 or pounds. Now, I was able to beat my previous time by almost a second, coming in at 2 minutes 4 seconds, and then that put me in a place of 900th out of 3,313 drivers and in the top 27% worldwide, so a 3% increase over the previous time. For my second to last attempt at this rivals event, I jumped into Lamborghini's 1967 Miura P400. This is another car that's been around in Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon for quite a few years, and is an extremely fast vehicle. But one of its characteristics are it doesn't have fantastic handling out of the box at spec. So I had to do a number of different tunes for this car in order to make it reliable enough or controllable enough to get a decent time on the circuit. Now, I did save the tune and share it, so if you guys are interested in it, just look me up under Xbox and grab that tune. But you know, this car was able to do tight turns after I played with it a bit, and you could kind of feel it starting to kick the back end out, but not in the same way that the TVR Sagaris would. The Sagaris would kind of just kick out. You know, you wouldn't get too much of a warning from it, or not a lot of time anyway, whereas this car, you got a bit more time to react to it. And obviously if you did react to it, it was pretty catastrophic, but if you did, you know, you could make it round the corner, just back off the speed a little bit and then punch that accelerator down again. Very quick vehicle this. The Miura is actually named after a famous bullfighting rancher, Don Eduardo Miura. In 1962, Ferruccio Lamborghini met with Don Eduardo Miura at his ranch, where he bred his world-class fighting bulls, and it's those fighting bulls that inspired Ferruccio Lamborghini to choose the fighting bull emblem on the Lamborghini vehicles, and since then a large number of the Lamborghinis have been named in association with bullfighting. So this vehicle managed to knock another second, or over a second, off at 2 minutes and 3 seconds .005, putting me 706th in the world and in the top 21%, so even more improvements. For my final run, I jumped into Porsche's 1962 804. Now this is pretty much a torpedo with wheels on. It's crazily light, this, 1,007 pounds, so it's by far the lightest vehicle. It's less than half the weight of the lightest vehicle out of the other 6 cars that I drove. It's got the highest acceleration ratio at 8.7 in terms of statistics. Handling isn't fantastic. It's very lively, this car, with no assists. Extremely difficult to control. And as you can see, this is my 6th lap, my 6th attempt to break this time. And the reason I haven't broken the time as yet in this vehicle is because I kind of kept sliding out and getting a dirty lap at the last minute. So it's all about trying to just not push this too much into the corners. If you push it that little bit too much, you totally lose control. It's a really difficult vehicle to handle, this one. Definitely one of the more difficult vehicles I've driven in Forza Motorsport 7. Took this hill really nicely, this car. There's so much power here, it kind of glided around that hill. A lot of the other cars where I took that corner, with the exception of that Ferrari Challenge Stradale, you know, really struggled to get around that corner safely. I did have to back off a lot just to keep the thing under control. This car, once I got used to it, was actually not too bad. I still had the occasional bit of slide and need to regain control out of the vehicle, like here, where I almost lose it. But in general, once you get used to this vehicle and, you know, carefully accelerate, not accelerate too fast because that will just lose control, it's actually a really good vehicle for time trialing. So this Porsche 804 managed to get me in with a time of 2 minutes and 1 second, .709, which took another 2 seconds off the previous time, putting me 594th out of over 4,000 drivers and in the top 15% worldwide. Big improvement there. Well, I hope you enjoyed this Rivals journey in Forza Motorsport 7. I might do some more of these in the future. Please be kind enough to rate the video and subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, click that sub button. Everyone's welcome. Take care, keep well, keep watching, and most importantly, come back soon.